So obviously, big, huge freaking day for us. We're really, really pumped about this year's recruiting class. These guys, today is about those people, those kids, those families. But before we talk about them and their stories and how they got here and how we ultimately chose them, they chose us. We wanted to thank everyone who's involved in this. And obviously, Pat and I stand up here, but there's a much, much, much larger team that goes into play here with Taylor Ewald and Marissa Pavoni, who help handle all the on-campus recruiting stuff. We've got Isaiah Green-May, Jared Thompson, Zach Zilm, Grant Anderson, Brandon Rose, who handle all the recruiting and personnel, and then obviously the coaching staff assist with us, with Coach Fickle, and it's a full team effort. It takes an army, and we wouldn't be there, we wouldn't be here without those guys. So, what do you guys got?
How much do you guys look at these two recruiting classes, the full ones you helped put together, and feel like they've got to form the backbone of what this program can become?
Yeah, we believe how you build a program is stacking successful recruiting classes back to back, and we feel really good about the guys, the kids, the talent, but more importantly, the people who are in those recruiting classes to kind of be the staple of where we want to go, but the staple of this culture.
With just how the calendar is now, and just right after the season, and it's the early signing period, we were bumped up. Just has that been better for you all? How have the changes? Has it been beneficial at all in terms of then transfer?
I think it
portal?
helps us. I think it helps us with the transfer portal push back, so we can finalize our 2025s and really get that process and knowing what we're doing with 25 roster numbers wise, so then we can transition to the portal, from there with where we're at roster and numbers. So it's a little more clarity instead of last year where it was a free for all, where you had transfer portal coinciding with high school recruiting, and now I think they did a good job there, at least helping us out with that aspect for sure.
Luke touched on this, but were you guys worried about losing guys with the way the season was going at the end?
We worry about losing guys 365 days of the year, and then that's the natural anxiety that we live with. But obviously things get tougher when the blind faith and that faith and belief is challenged. But we felt like built through relationships and built through obviously the vision of where the program's going. Sometimes it doesn't happen as fast as you want it to happen, but you just got to continue to remind them that they're the future of this thing, and we chose them and they chose us for a reason.
Can you take us through the process of Carter decommitting and you guys jumping in on that?
Yeah, has fun. Hell yeah. Obviously a very unique one with all the change happening within our program, and to him and his process, a very challenging one. We always tell families this is not an easy recruiting process, and unfortunately sometimes we make it tougher than it needs to be, and sometimes the leagues make it tougher and the rules make it tougher than it needs to be. So heart was out to them on how the process went with his prior institution, and it was just an opportunity that kind of struck at the right time. And we say everything happens for a reason, and for us, Pat and I were able to go down there and spend some time at Bishop Verot, and he was able to come up here obviously on his official visit, and just felt like a perfect match for who we are, what we want to do, and what we want to be. And there's several kids in this recruiting class. Carter's one of them, Hardy Watts, Mason Posa. There's several others who just embody who Wisconsin football is, but more importantly, who Luke Fickle is.
There's not many times, Wisconsin's ripped away a Michigan commit, especially late in the process. Can you guys just talk about what that took to get done, and maybe the effort? I know it was maybe felt like a couple week effort, but probably close to 8-9 months.
Referring to Carter and Jalen?
Or more specifically Jalen.
Yeah, Jalen. So Jalen goes way, 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 way back. I mean, we were hot and heavy on him, obviously a Chicagoland guy that we had campus. Our first 2 months on campus, we had him here, and he was like the only kid in his recruiting class, and it was him and Cooper Catalano. Those are the only two kids there, and we swung, we recruited him hard. This was back when Coach Scruggs was here, and we had built a fantastic relationship with them. And for whatever reason, things changed. His mind changed, and his avenues changed, but we never changed and never stopped recruiting him. So it all worked out in the end for us.
Pat, you mentioned numbers a little bit ago. I know it hasn't been made officially yet, but what number are you guys operating in terms of how many scholarships you're going to have going in next year? Because I know it's kind of still up in the air.
It's fluid. It's like the ocean, very fluid. So it's something in the past that used to be a little bit easier, where you could say, hey, you're losing this many guys, you get this many guys come in, this is how many you're looking in the portal. But now it's an everyday number that constantly changes and something that we're definitely staying on every day and every night.
You mentioned Cooper. He was one of your earlier commits. What was it about him that early on you said, hey, this is the guy we want to try to get in the fold?
Yeah, well, we knew coming in that recruiting the state of Wisconsin was really important to us. And right when we got in, I think some of the old staff had talked about him, and we had communicated with him and turned the tape on, and we just saw instantly that he is a football player. I mean, you're talking about the all-time leading tackler in Wisconsin football history, and I'm sure they've been playing the sport of football for a long time here. So that was something, and just as far as the kid and the tape, we were obviously excited that he just finds the football, and we know instinctually that's an important thing at the linebacker position.
With just the search for for an offensive coordinator, and how hard was it to try to keep some of the commits, committed, where kind of the, especially the skill positions, where whether it's quarterback or wide receiver or tight ends, like with Emmett Bork or Zai Davis, just how did they, how hard was it trying to keep them committed and looking towards your vision?
I think it just fell back to relationships at the end of the day, of trust and belief in the guy up top, Coach Fickle, and the plan we had for him, because obviously we spent a lot of time with those guys and not letting them waver. And obviously recruiting is ever fluid, and schools are going to battle you all the way up to signing day. So I think just being able for them to truly trust and knowing who those important people are in their life and being able to touch those guys, so then obviously it all comes together for us to believe in what we're doing. So I think it's more than just a kid. I think it's a family, all that stuff coming together. So.
Obviously, Jamari Washington was a good, strong early eval for you guys. With his length and athleticism, just how do you see kind of a good fit there at that outside corner?
Yeah, I think we kind of projected him early. Our recruiting staff actually did a really good job identifying him before he had really any offers at all. He has 80-inch wingspan, which doesn't grow on trees. So kind of what we want to do in the boundary corner position. Obviously, he came in a little light from his junior year, but he's progressing and knows what he needs to work on, and I'm really excited about. I think it's more just like the mentality. If you've watched his film, he's not going to shy away from any contact. He's tough. He fits this place, and we're really excited for being 6'2". The fluidity he has, it's different. So we're really excited about him.
Fickle talked a little bit about the difference between recruiting someone from Chicago as opposed to someone from Arizona. Can you guys talk about when you don't have the as many connections inside, as many personal connections? How do you know that you're still getting the right guy rather than just the right player?
Yeah, we put on get him to campus. Right, that's the biggest thing. If we can find somebody from outside of our area, the critical and crucial piece is getting them to step foot in Madison, Wisconsin. As we know, when we came in, we knew the challenge was, hey, getting them here's the challenge. When they get here, obviously you're in business because Madison sells itself, and that's how we kind of process those guys from farther away, because once you get to meet them face to face and in person, you get to understand who they are, who their family is, where they came from, and all those things.
Just like what Max said, just the distance, being able to really get them. We're going to get kids on campus all the time. It's way more, it's easier to get those guys on campus from closer distance away, than it would be from Arizona, like I said. So I think just the access and the ability to get them on campus is what really wins at the end of the day. So, because when you see Madison, you're blown away. So.
Luke's talked about retaining guys. Is a struggle, or I guess not a struggle. It's a big part of things. Do you guys play a role at all in trying to retain guys, especially ones that you were very close with, and I know several of them have entered the portal this week?
Yeah. It's for us, it's more and more not important, but relevant every single year. Because obviously the 2024 recruiting class, we recruit and develop and have stronger, deeper relationships with. And obviously these 25s will be the same. Some of those guys who, I won't say we inherited, but obviously when we got here, who were here, we didn't recruit them. We know their families, we know them, we might not know them as well. So typically those guys have a deeper bond and relationship with their position coach, with the strength and conditioning coach. But as time moves forward and moves on, the ones that we did bring in, we did recruit, we do know their families, we spent a lot of time with them. I do think it becomes more and more important that we're involved in that process.
You mentioned the desire to get bigger on the defensive line. Does that increase even the difficulty of recruiting those guys? Because there's only so many big defensive linemen. It seems like everybody wants those guys.
Yeah, there's only so many people walking planet Earth with the size we're looking for, and then there's only so many people walking planet Earth that size who can move the way we want them to move. So we all know it's a priority position, and especially at the interior defensive tackle. As we know through high school recruiting and the transfer portal, that's highly coveted. And there's not many schools, there's not many institutions out there that are not looking to continually add at that spot, because obviously if you got game changers there, it makes everyone on the defense better.
I know that today is signing day, but the portal opens Monday, so I wanted to ask this question just in general for you guys. What do you think the challenge is in trying to identify people who can come here and make a difference right away? It would seem on the surface because they have college film, maybe it should happen quicker as opposed to high school, but we've seen that hasn't always been the case. Like, what is the kind of thought process behind how you approach this, since it's so important?
I think you just leave no stone unturned, so you just know what you have to address going into the next season. I feel like we have a good base of what we need to build on and some people that we need to bring in here. So I think just evaluating that and advanced scouting and knowing what we're looking for, I think is what really is. And even just from the high school aspect, I don't want to get away from transfer, but obviously Drayden Pavey, Xavier Ponu, and Torrin Petaway, them alone averaged 295 to 305, with links from averaging 6'2.5" to 6'3.5", maybe 6'5", Torrin being an outlier. So I think just knowing what we're addressing, what we want to build on is what we're identifying and trying to go after. So hopefully that answers.
Do you know how big that portal class might be? I suppose that's hard to answer until you know if there's any more outgoings.
It's changed in the past couple of days. But it's ever flowing, and we'll be prepared.
With just you talk about Torrin, you talk about Xavier, or not Xavier. You talk about them, but Torrin and Drayden, I should say, and others that the art of the flip. What is the art of the flip, and working with guys that were committed? If it is an art, but just how do you approach that where kids are committed, and then trying to work in where all of a sudden Emmett Bork, for instance, flips from Michigan State.
I think it's always challenging for us. It's something we got to continually remind ourselves of throughout the entire process, that one thing that you get addicted to, at least I know I am, I know Pat is the chase, right? The chase when a kid calls you and commits and wants to be a Badger and you want him, you love that feeling, and you have to continually challenge yourself of, hey, don't take a step back. Just because they're committed in this world doesn't mean that they're a Wisconsin Badger. So speaking from that point of view, knowing when they commit that there's still a lot of recruiting and a lot of relationship building to go all the way until the day they get here. And talking about that, flipping to the other side of it is schools can't let up, especially on guys that we really, really want. And sometimes they might make the decision not to come here in the first place, and you don't give up, right? You keep recruiting them, and if they leave their foot off the pedal, then there's a lot of opportunity and continue to convince their family this is the right fit for them.
Have either of you ever been part of a recruitment like Petaway's, where you lose them to a rival and get them back a month or two later?
I'm gonna say no.
No. It was pretty unique. Rob Booker was pretty unique as well. So those are two of the newer kids. Someone asked about Mason Post.
I was gonna ask about Hilton. Just what do you guys think he brings here?
I think there's some natural immaturity. Maybe it's his family. Obviously, Ty and his family's done a great job of raising him. And I think he brings a lot to take. I think he's a playmaker, fluid. He's just a natural. Why are you smiling? That's my guy. So I think just some of the things of versatility, being able to play inside and outside, we're really excited about. Just the natural making ability is what we're hoping and excited about him just from this senior year as well. So.
How special is Mason Poston?
He's really special. I told this to him and his family, and I think Pat would agree, I think everyone would agree. Never met a more Luke Fickell recruit in the history of recruiting. You're talking about the competitive nature, tough as nails, obviously the wrestling background, big heart, family, faith, friends, or family, faith, football. That's just who he is. That's who Luke Fickell is, and perfect fit for us. And I think there's a lot of things that we're really excited about beyond just the player who he is and the leadership, the competitiveness. We really think he could be a cornerstone of a culture moving forward.
This group has no running backs in this year's group, which obviously you can offer, and they got to accept. But I guess how comfortable, or how do you feel about
Yeah.
not having one in this year's
Yeah,
class?
that's a great question. There's both sides, right? From our perspective, you just signed three. Three you're really excited about. Obviously, Darian had a great season. He's going to continue to progress. And Dylan Jones, we're really excited about. Gian Atuka, really excited about. So we knew we had a good core nucleus of three of them, and the odds of all three of them burning the red shirt were rather low. And on the flip side of it, it becomes really, really hard to recruit a running back at the level that we want to recruit when they know that those guys are in the class above them. So it's kind of transpired and worked itself out.
With this set of early enrollees, 16 out of the 24 are expected to enroll in January. Just with this offseason, transfer portal as it is, just how important do you think these early enrollees could be, for spring ball and moving forward and potentially contributing early?
I think the development is limitless, and that's just not on the football field, which you'll see with having spring ball and obviously being with Coach Brady and getting to immerse yourself in that. But I think just the development altogether, good comfortability, kind of being able to kind of get taken under your wing instead of in the summer when they get here, it's freaking a couple workouts and they're headed to camp. So I think just being able to naturally kind of take them under your wing and kind of progress through it, I think it's just a little bit smoother than just the summer where it just freaking hits the ground running where the season jumps. So.
How much has that changed over the years? Like even since when you guys at Cincinnati, I mean, I remember like Wisconsin, say 5 years ago, if there were 5 guys who were early enrolled, that was kind of a big number, and it keeps getting bigger. Like what's your message to them, and why do you think it's changed?
We don't mandate them having to. To be honest with you, we would have more if some of the high schools would allow it, like the Drayton Pavies of the world who were like scratching, clawing, trying to, but their school wouldn't let them to. I think it's just becoming the norm of the development, and everybody just recognizing it, just becoming, the standard more or less.
So any breaks at all for you guys? I take it not with what's coming up next week officially.
Hell no.
No, never. We want to have it any other way though. So.
Well, we appreciate you guys.
Yes.
Obviously, there's a lot that goes into it, and the media side of it, it does matter in recruiting. Yeah. And it's a big part of this thing, and we've got a great crew right in here. Your hair is phenomenal. So, we do appreciate you guys, and everything you do throughout the course of the year matters. So, thanks, guys.
Awesome.